Hello and welcome to episode 22 of Rabbit Hole Reviews. Today we're going to take a quick look at a CZ-75 clone made by a company called Armi Fratelli Tanfoglio is the full name. Most commonly known as just Tanfoglio as a manufacturer. They're an Italian firearms manufacturer known for handguns and more recently race guns for competition. They've been in business since 1948. They've had various importers over the years. I think the most recent one, I think they call it the Defiant, and they're imported out of Texas. I know they were out of Florida at one point. So they have a wide range of different handguns to choose from, both currently and in the past. So what you're going to end up seeing is all different kinds of variations of CZ-75 clones, whether that be all steel or polymer versions, going back decades. In fact, this is my third Tanfoglio firearm. I just picked this up a couple days ago. The one I had before this was a 10mm Tanfoglio, which I'm getting ready to replace because I don't have that anymore, and I kind of regret selling that. So I'm going to upgrade that and probably get a race gun in 10mm by Tanfoglio. So you're going to see that on the channel down the road at some point. And in fact, the very first pistol I ever owned was a Tanfoglio. I bought that in 1993. It was the CZ-75. And I remember picking that gun up and being so thrilled that I was now 21 years old in 1993 and that I could buy my first pistol. Now, that pistol ended up not being very reliable, and I didn't keep it very long. One, because I didn't feel as a 21-year-old, I guess I didn't have the patience to work out its problems. So I ended up getting rid of it and moving on to probably something like a Glock or something boring, right? Like a lot of people do. But yeah, so I appreciate CZs, and I got into CZ by way of Tanfoglio because my first exposure to the CZ-75 design was by getting the TZ-75, a clone of the actual CZ. So from there, I like the aesthetics, I like the ergonomics, I like the way CZ-75s felt in the hand. I have relatively large hands. So yeah, from there I went to CZ, and for many years I had all different variations of CZ-75, CZ-85s, you name it. I had them all. Nickel, steel, all types of different CZs. And again, it's a CZ-75 design, right? So you got to wonder, the CZ-75 can't be a bad design if it's being cloned about as much as a 1911. Lots of different people are out there cloning it. Previously on the channel, you saw the IWI 941 by the Israelis made that, and that, or still make it, and that is also a CZ-75 clone. So you can kind of see where I'm going with this. Now, this pistol here was, of course, you can imagine by the model number, was imported in the 1990s. It's no longer in production anymore. And in a lot of ways, it's not really cutting edge. And I say that, well, one, it's all steel construction, which is kind of overkill, but I appreciate that because what you end up with is a very stout, well-made handgun that can handle lots of rounds and lots of high-pressure rounds. It definitely feels heavy when you pick it up because it is, right? The grips on this pistol right here, they look like they're hard plastic, but they're actually rubber. They're hard rubber, and they really do a good job with giving you a nice purchase on the handgun. All the controls are very nice. They're very accessible. We'll pick it up right now just to take a quick peek at it. So we have a magazine. We'll go ahead and clear it. I just shot it today, and we'll get into that in a minute. Like I said, I've only had this a few days. So it's got a slide-mounted decocker, and you can hear that clang noise because that's all steel. Every time you drop the hammer or squeeze the trigger, you just get that solid feel because this thing is heavy. The controls are all very nice. You can see the slide stop is kind of lower down, so you don't really have to search for it. It's low profile, but not so low profile that you can't actually get a grip on it. So if your hands are sweaty or bloody or anything like that, or if there's mud on your hands, you're going to be able to catch that slide stop. So I definitely appreciate that. The decocker is ambidextrous. Of course, the slide stop is not. You got to remember when this gun was imported in the 1990s, things like MOS cuts you're not going to have. Again, this is a relatively short frame, so you're not going to get anything like pick rails because Picatinny rails didn't exist back then. This reminds me a lot of the CZ-75 that I used to have. Also a very good gun. Now this is heavier because it's all steel construction, whereas the CZ-75, similar in size, is an alloy frame. Both excellent guns. I actually shot better with this today. Now granted, I only ran 50 rounds through it. I shot better with this than I did on average with my CZ-75. So the rounds that I used were the typical no frills Norma 115 grain full metal jacket, brass cased. Really clean burning stuff, very consistent. And I have lots of these rounds, so this is pretty much what I use for my plinking and for doing any kind of tests. So let's get that out of the way. Before we get a little bit more into it, let's put this thing on the scale and see what we're working with. I'm going to tell you up front that I weighed this beforehand and it came in at over 2.5 pounds. So we're going to go ahead and prove that on camera right now. And let's see what we get, if my scale cooperates, because lately it's been problematic. All right, so we have 12 rounds in the magazine because that's the standard capacity for the the Tanfoglio BTA90, which is the model number for this gun, is 12 rounds. So that's another thing that kind of makes it a little less competitive. We'll get into that in a little bit. Kind of all over the place today on my review, but I'm going to try to keep it short. So let's see what, I'll change the units. We'll do it in pounds today. So typical load's going to be 12 rounds, but you know, if you're going to carry this gun, it's going to be with the hammer decocked on a live chamber, and you're going to have what I would assume would be a 12-round magazine plus one in the chamber, right? So you go ahead and load that one round out of the magazine, decock the pistol, remove the magazine with now 11 rounds in it, top it off, giving you 13 rounds. So that being said, 13 rounds of 115 grain 9mm brings this pistol in at 2.551 pounds. So roughly 2.5 pounds. So not light, but we kind of knew that going in. And I knew that going in when I bought this. And it's just, everything about this is just, it's so well made. We'll go ahead and clear it again. I just shot it today, put 50 rounds through it, so I've cleaned it, so it's got no oil on it, as you can hear. We'll go ahead and decock it. You can just hear that twang of that all steel. You can tell I definitely have a bias, right? Let's take a look at some of the other specs. So it's a 3.5-inch barrel, 12-round magazine, double action, single action. The sights, which we'll take a look at, they're very nice. Now, they're not particularly adjustable. The front is a fixed blade, so you're kind of stuck with that as far as if you want to put Trijicons and things like that. The rear is dovetailed, but it doesn't look like it's very easy to drift. And I'm going to show you my test targets that I ran today. And luckily, at the distance I was shooting, this thing was spot on, because if it wasn't, I think I would have been out of luck. Whenever I get these guns in inventory, I usually run one box through them. I clean them really well, run one box of 50 rounds at a set distance to check point of aim and to make sure that there's no failure to extract, failure to feeds, no issues, right? Just so I know that the thing works. And then it probably ends up getting stuck in the box and sitting there for years like a lot of my guns. But I digress. So let's take a look at the box itself. So if you end up buying one of these, you're going to get a vintage 1990s box. It's going to look something like this. Now, they come with 2 magazines, but over the course of time, somehow my extra magazine disappeared. I don't know if the seller took it or the previous owner didn't give it to them, whatever. I ended up sourcing 2 other magazines en route, so they're not particularly inexpensive. They're roughly $45 a piece. So what you're going to get is, more than likely, you're going to get 2 magazines, one in here, one in the pistol, getting a couple of cleaning brushes, which you're probably never going to use. And then you're going to look at some janky manual like this one. Now, it covers everything you need to cover. This is more of a pamphlet than a manual. It's basically one giant page, but it tells you everything you need to know. It gives you the complete parts breakdown. It gives you a schematic. So I think overall it gets the job done. I'm not that particularly picky with manuals on things like a lock breech 9mm. There's not really a whole lot going on here. It breaks down into what, 5 parts. You got the frame, the slide, the barrel, and the spring and the guide rod. That's it. So if you can't figure out how to take it apart with this manual, I don't know what to tell you. So here it has some of the specs on there. Just not a particularly overwhelming package here. It's but then again, you're looking at roughly $300. So that's what I paid for this. Now you can get these; they are out there. The one benefit of getting something like this is because it doesn't cost $600+ for a CZ. So if you can get a gun like this for $300 and change, maybe $350 out the door, I think they're an excellent buy, because I think that by and large, a lot of the Tanfoglios out there are every bit as good as a CZ. And in some cases, I dare to say better, depending on what models you get in terms of the race guns. Now, CZ is no slouch, right? They're cranking out all kinds of stuff, and I like both. So I have a bias for both. So when I talk about both designs, comparing the two, keep in mind, I love both. So it's probably not a particularly objective comparison, right? This is going to be a relatively short review. We're going to try to keep this under 15 minutes. We're going to put it on, do some trigger weights and things like that. Now, is this competitive, right? Given the 2.5-pound carry weight, no accessory rail, and kind of hard to adjust sights, and the fact that it's 12+1 in capacity. Now, for the size of this handgun, you're looking at things like Glock 19s that are similar in profile. They're definitely more advanced in terms of being able to swap sights out, having an accessory rail, having 15 to up to 17 rounds of capacity. Polymer, it's lighter, I get it. But you're not really buying this pistol because you want the most up-to-date, state-of-the-art carry gun. This might have been in contention for state-of-the-art in 1989, but clearly 30+ years of time have passed and a lot of things have happened. You buy this pistol because A, you appreciate CZ-75 designs, B, you like Tanfoglio, which are both true in my case, and you want a really stout handgun, in this case all steel. This is not an economy gun. It's really well thought out, well executed, and can digest large numbers of rounds. So you could take this to the range and shoot a lot and not worry about breakage as much. Now, parts is going to be an issue, more so than, say, if you had a Glock. We get that, right? But without further ado, let's put it on the scale as far as the trigger weights. We'll clear it one more time. I don't know if I'm going to make my 15-minute cutoff. Probably not. Maybe if I start talking really fast, which I don't really do. So let's do the single action, because that's, to be honest, that's going to be where 90% of your rounds are going to be fired. All right, 5.6 pounds. .6. See how close the third one's going to be. And 5.2. So double action is going to be considerably heavier than that. The trigger pulls are very nice. .4. After we get done with this, we'll test. I'll show you the test targets and show you what we're working with, and then we'll wrap it up. I promise. Ouch. 12.4. Let's do a redo on that one. 15.6. I'm going to keep doing this until I get a weight that I feel is accurate. 15.8. We'll do one more. I really like these rubberized grips. They look hard plastic, but they're not. They're rubber. And they really do a good job. 15.8. So it's going to be over 15 pounds. It's like a lot of double action, single action. Double action is roughly a little over double the weight of the single action. And moving on, let's see if I can pull the test targets up. So I shot 50 rounds total of the Norma 115 grain. This load right here, nothing fancy. And the first target, so all the rounds were fired, all 50 rounds were fired at 21 feet, so 7 yards. I had a left bias, which a lot of times I do when I take handguns out. And as you can see, I drifted it over through getting my point of aim. And this is my subsequent shot groups. Now I had a second target where I took one magazine, 12 rounds, and it was my last magazine after I had some practice figuring out where the point of aim was. So this is my final 12 rounds fired out of the BTA90 for the day. So the first round here, this top one, was fired in double action. I drew the pistol, fired in double action, hit here at 21 feet, and then all the other 11 rounds that followed were all in here. So I was very happy with this. I think I could shoot these groups all day long. Even though the pistol is very, I wouldn't say very small. It's a compact design, in line with like a Glock 19. The overall weight, you're looking at 2.5 pounds. It made it very controllable. The sights allowed you to pick up very quickly. I was really happy with this. I'll take this all day long with Norma 115 grain. Just really, what's to say about that, right? You really can't dispute that. And I'm an okay pistol shooter. I'm a much better rifle shooter than I am a handgun shooter. So if I can do that at 21 feet, I think this can be replicated. Excuse me. By pretty much anybody. And so that's all I pretty much have for you guys today. This has been a quick review of the Army Fratelli Tanfoglio BTA90 CZ-75 clone in compact form, all steel pistol. Wow, that was a mouthful, right? In 9mm. I give this 2 thumbs up as long as you don't pay roughly, I wouldn't pay more than about $350 for one, depending on condition and what it comes with. These can be had for several $100s less than an equivalent CZ design, and they're every bit as good of a pistol, in my opinion. So until next time, this has been episode 22 of Rabbit Hole Reviews.